running back busts and breakouts of the year.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of guys I'm excited to talk about on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's actually just dive straight into it.
Welcome to the FantasyLand Football Podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome. It is Thursday, the 14th of January. If you are listening, maybe you're listening a couple of days after. Regardless, welcome into the FantasyLand Football Podcast. This is Zach, that's Badaki. In very unrelated fantasy football news, James Harden is officially... Brooklyn net, after a lot of rumors throughout this entire year.
Shout out to my hometown, you know?
A lot of people said the Nets, honestly, they don't have the facilities for that.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
And...
You know who does, though?
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Well, apparently they do. But
2347 7th Street. Come see me on my block between 3rd and 4th. Come on. Call the number.
Are you a Nets fan?
Nah. My family has been a huge Knicks fan growing up.
Okay.
But obviously, Nets was always in Jersey. But
Right.
they build Barclays Center literally probably like 6 blocks away from where where my family lives.
Right.
And like where I grew up. So it was a pretty big moment for Brooklyn when that happened because obviously Jay-Z and he's like
Massive.
the owner of that.
I remember.
Yeah,
I think everyone was a Brooklyn fan that year.
Yeah.
There's been talks. Some people, someone said this in a group chat of ours, actually. Could this just be history repeating itself when Brooklyn traded everything away for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and they just now got out of everything they owed in that trade? If this doesn't work out, they have just given up their next decade for James Harden. I don't know. It's going to be the talent's there, but I'm not sure that these guys can work together in cohesion. We'll see. That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Look, I'm not a huge basketball fan. I don't really follow basketball like you do, but it's clear that they want to win. They want to win now, and they believe that, having Harden, KD, and Kyrie,
Yeah.
They think that that's the winning trio. So hopefully they can
see.
win.
We'll see. And we don't want to talk basketball anymore, but last thing I will say, any basketball fans out there maybe, could you imagine LeBron and KD in the finals? If LeBron, he's almost cementing his legacy right then as debatably tied greatest. There's a big conversation there. Let's not get into it. But anyway, let's talk about football. That's what you're here for. You're here to talk about fantasy football or just NFL. Okay, let's talk about some news.
What is going on here?
All right, what is going on around the National Football League? This is your need to know news. We talked about this on the last podcast, but the Deshaun Watson rumors are heating up. Lots of teams coming out as rumors all over the place. You got San Francisco, you got Miami, you got Chicago. I wish I could say you got Washington, but I haven't heard of any talks. Right. There's a lot of teams who are looking like they're in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want a talent like Deshaun Watson? He is a come right now, we are going to win some games type of player. We've seen it even in this terrible year that he had. He still was a top 5, top 6 quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's incredible what he can do with the losing team. Just imagine what he can do with the winning team and talent around him.
Totally.
He just needs to find the right place. If he ends up getting traded, it's a huge step for his career.
And let's be clear, because there were some comments on our Instagram about this. Deshaun Watson had nothing in Houston this year. Okay? Look at the numbers he put up individually, and they are amazing considering what he had. Let me remind you, David Johnson Just watch him play this year. If you watched him play this year, you know he's nothing like the old David Johnson. Will Fuller as your wide receiver 1, is he a good player? Yes. But for him to put up the numbers he did, my gosh, there's just no, I won't take any disrespect of Deshaun Watson. He's without a doubt a top 5 quarterback, top 3 quarterback in this league. I don't know who you want to start a franchise with other than Patrick Mahomes over Deshaun Watson.
I mean,
I would rather have Deshaun than Lamar. I would rather have Deshaun. Maybe Josh Allen is the only other guy.
Right.
Right now.
Right now. Okay. I mean, I can definitely see it. I think there's obviously other talent. Out there. You know, Deshaun. He's amazing with his arm and amazing with his legs. So, you know, he has a double-edged sword. It's good. It's good for Deshaun. It's just I want to see him go somewhere else. I really do.
I do as well. I really want to see him get out of Houston. From what we've heard, Miami players are not sold on Tua. What's happening there?
It's just a lot of rumors right now. No names have been said. Just a lot of reports saying that Miami players just aren't sold. There's been conversations circling around players. You know, either it's true rumors or false rumors, but it's interesting because if you have players like that saying that they're not backing up the future of your franchise, essentially, that's pretty big, especially Tua, obviously, you know. There's a lot of ups and downs with Tua. You know, I think we both kind of see it the same way, but I think they need to give him one more year. I think
exactly. Exactly. That's the reality here. As you know, I don't think we loved what we saw out of Tua in year 1. You can say he won a lot of games, and that's true. But what did you see in those games that you loved from him other than ball security and not turning the ball over? So I still think this year is really going to determine what the future looks like for him. There's still a lot of time to prove.
Yeah, there's a lot of expectations on quarterback coming into the NFL.
Tons.
Now.
Way too much.
There is people... Justin Herbert came onto the scene and absolutely shattered records, okay? And he did something amazing this year as a rookie. And that's what I think the NFL is basing their quarterback, I guess, first-year status on now. If this rookie can do it, why isn't my rookie doing this? You know, and Tua, obviously, he doesn't have the same pieces, doesn't have the same talent around him. But Justin Herbert, Joe Burrows was doing something special before he got hurt. You know, who's another rookie quarterback that was out there?
Well, obviously, there weren't too many this year. Yeah,
obviously Jalen Hurts. He did something special the first game, but he didn't really do anything special the rest of the, along the way.
No, you're right. There's a lot more expected from rookie quarterbacks. Speaking of Jalen Hurts in the Eagles, reports come out. Doug Peterson was prepared to move forward with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback 1, but owner Jeffrey Lurie was not ready to make that commitment. Maybe had a big part in the reason he was let go.
Yeah. There was a lot of talks, obviously on ESPN. I think it was ESPN First Take. They were talking about different reporters saying that Jeffrey Lurie essentially got rid of Doug Peterson because he wanted to be with Carson Wentz for the rest of the season. He didn't want to move on to Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And they just didn't see eye to eye on that. So maybe there's a lot of rumors. Obviously,
if the owner and the coach don't see eye to eye, then that's typically a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Speaking of some more head coaches, Urban Meyers, there's rumors that the Chargers are showing serious interest in Urban, and the Jags could have some serious competition. If you're Urban Meyers, maybe if the Chargers are interested in you, you've already got a solidified, hopefully what we believe is a future star in Justin Herbert. Maybe the piece is already there. You got Joey Bosa on the other side. You got Derwin James on the other side. Some really good defensive pieces. you could get a guy like Kyle Pitts in the draft. You still have a good draft pick. I don't know. Maybe that is the smarter move for Urban. But then again, if you do go Jags and you build it from the ground up, that's a legacy. That's 100% a legacy. So
absolutely,
yeah.
We'll definitely see what goes on there. But Robert Saleh interviewed with the Eagles as well. Left the Jets building without a deal. He interviewed with the Jets. Now there's talks that he's going to be interviewing with the Eagles. So we'll see about that. And then also Matthew Stafford. There's a lot of different people talking about Matthew Stafford and what he should be doing. He may want to consider getting traded out or trying to leave this organization, because this organization is another place that has wasted an amazing talent in Matthew Stafford, I believe.
Yeah.
They didn't bring, obviously they got Kenny G. They haven't had a running back for a long time. They thought Kerryon Johnson was the guy. He wasn't. I mean, get him out.
Yeah, I think at this point he probably would prefer to play for an organization that's not in a rebuild mode. Some franchises I can think of, I wouldn't hate to see him in Washington. I wouldn't hate to see him in Indianapolis. You talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people. There's been talks that a lot of people would have liked to have seen Matthew Stafford play in that Colts versus Bills game, wild card game, and they believe that Matthew Stafford was on that team and leading that team, they would have beaten the Bills. Yeah.
It's an interesting take, and I don't think. We don't know what would have happened, right? But there would have been. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see. All right, lots is going to happen in the offseason, guys. And the easiest way to keep up with all things NFL and fantasy football is to follow us on our social media accounts. You can follow us on Instagram at FantasyLand Football. You can follow us on Twitter, which is at FantasyLand_FB. And something that we're just now doing is we're starting a Facebook page, a Facebook group, rather. We have a page, but the Facebook group is actually going to be an opportunity for you to be more a part of our community, have more discussions, ask people questions who are in our community, get some feedback from each other, talk about breaking news. Is Tua the right guy? Is he the real deal? These type of conversations we can have. This is a trade you were offered in fantasy. What do you guys think? What does the community think? It's your opportunity to be a part of it like that. So definitely something to look out for. And of course, you can watch the show on YouTube if you'd like. It's all these links are in any of our social bio on the link tree. So easiest way to keep up with everything is to follow us on our social medias. So last week we did our first bust and breakouts of the year. It was the quarterback edition.
Right.
And that was great. A lot of people loved that. That was awesome to see. We are now doing the running back room, the running back group for this year. Bust and breakouts of the year's running back edition. So let's quickly talk about it.
You know why people are jumping on this bandwagon?
Okay.
You know why. I started this thing, Steven. I started it last year. This kid is ridiculous.
I honestly forgot about that drop completely. And then when I heard it, I was like, oh, wait, we made a whole drop for this segment. That's hilarious. I love that drop. This kid is ridiculous. Okay. We're talking running backs. And to start the bust and breakouts, we're going to start with some good news. Okay?
Right.
We're talking breakout running backs of the year. Who's the first guy on the list?
Monty. The name is David Montgomery. And what a year for Monty,
Oh, yeah.
Let me just tell you some stats really fast before we get into the real nitty-gritty of what I believe about Monty and where he's going to go. So his ADP, average draft position, he was a running back 28 going into the draft last year, which kind of averaged out to the mid-fifth round. And he finishes running back 4, okay, in the season.
According to ESPN.
Yeah, according to ESPN. So, once again, I'm going to give you some more stats. He had 247 carries, okay? That rounds up the whole year. He rushed for 1,700 yards. 1,070 yards.
Right.
And he also had 54 receptions.
That's big.
Yeah, that's big. That is fourth in running backs.
Wow.
He finished fourth in reception in running backs, which is huge. Obviously, if you play PPR, if that's really great. He had a total of 10 touchdowns, 8 on the ground, 2 in the air, which is all right. I mean,
yeah,
he just hit the double digit mark for the touchdowns. But look, Monty didn't really have the greatest start of the season.
No, not at all.
Everyone was talking about him. They were talking about how he wasn't doing too well. We thought that Monty was going to be a bust. He started off looking like he was a bust in the beginning of the season.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
yeah, I mean, up until what? It was the bye week, wasn't it? Week 11.
Yeah, exactly.
After week 11, he was an absolute baller. But before that, you weren't necessarily thrilled to have started him.
Nah, he wasn't that guy. And obviously that a lot of things, like obviously after week 11, his schedule kind of eased up.
Yeah.
A lot of teams were giving up a lot of points to running backs. He had the best schedule, I'm pretty sure, for a running back in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Which really helped him become running back 4. We saw him. He was breaking out for 20, 30 plus yard runs. He was going deep, bro.
Yeah. No, he absolutely balled out from week 12 onwards. That ADP, the running back 28th overall, that had a big part to play if you remember properly. Before drafts, he just picked up an injury right before the drafts, the fantasy drafts, and that pushed him back around a round or so. He was really going running back 20 in that range.
Right.
So that had a big part to play in that, but still, he was still drafted running back 28 overall, mid-5th round, to finish as the RB4. That means his proper value would have been to pick him with your 4th overall pick. In the top 6 type picks, and that's crazy, the value that he returned. Obviously, you didn't, if you drafted him, you weren't actually happy. You probably traded him away. So whoever has Monty and was happy with him probably traded for him after the bye week or rode him into the playoffs. Let's talk about next year, though, because to me, I would love to be wrong. This kind of feels like it's going to be a trap for me. I think people are going to draft him earlier than this year. Obviously, he could go in the 2nd, 3rd round type vibe, and I'm not sure that he's going to be putting up numbers like that. I don't know. I'm just not sold on him being my RB1 or maybe RB2 going into next year's drafts. I'm personally thinking that his ADP is going to be a little too high to invest into him next year in drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. I would still take him around mid-5th, maybe a little bit low as 6. Monty's not somebody I'm going to be reaching for. Monty is somebody that I hope people overlook him.
Yeah.
Monty's still there and like at the end of the 5th. Oh, let me take him. Let me take him right now on this turn. Yeah. So that's how I completely agree.
I don't
with
think
you.
that's happening though. I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's going to happen either. I think he would definitely go higher. But, it all depends, I think a lot of it kind of falls on who's going to be the quarterback next year and, what's going to happen with Allen Robinson. Are they going to change their offense? Tyreek.
One thing we can't overlook is Tariq Cohen, which
that's what I'm saying. I was about to say that. Tyreek Cohen's going to come back.
He signed a contract last year, and maybe some of that reception work goes to Tariq Cohen next year.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, I think you're right. Those receptions, 54 receptions, is definitely going to drop.
Yeah,
I think it was 54 out of something ridiculous. It was 54 out of 60, or 79. I forgot what it was, but look, I definitely agree with you. I think a more realistic finish for Monty next year is probably just top 12, maybe 11, 12, 13. That's where I see him finishing
top
next
20
year.
Feels real comfy for me for David Montgomery, a top 20 running back, and I know that might seem harsh, but this doesn't seem like an offseason where the Bears are going to improve heavily on the offensive side. It feels like they, if anything, might get a little bit worse. I don't think Allen Robinson's staying. I think he's gone. And the quarterback situation isn't really solidified. Personally, I think RB20, 15 to 20 is a safer spot, I feel, next year as a prediction than anything in the top 10. As much as we can say David Montgomery was a breakout, this next guy, in my opinion, is probably the breakout of the year. That's James Robinson went from absolutely undrafted in every fantasy football draft to finishing as the running back 7 on the year. And honestly, he could have finished much higher if he was able to play through that injury in the last couple of games. James Robinson is a name we absolutely will be talking about this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, James Robinson, like you said, finished running back 7 overall. He was absolutely incredible this year. He had 240 carries, 1,070 yards rushing, 49 receptions. Okay,
That's big.
Which is not terrible. He's 7th among running backs in receptions, which is not bad. And he has 10 touchdowns, 7 on the ground, 3 in the air, which is once again not terrible. It's really great for someone like James Robinson to be undrafted. Okay, number 1.
Yeah,
and his talent is just incredible. He's super explosive. Yeah. He's strong. The yards after the catch was great. You know, he had a lot of screens. He's a great pass catching back. I mean, they need to be utilizing him, and I know that the Jags are excited to have someone as talented as James Robinson just coming out of nowhere.
Absolutely. What a find for them in the NFL draft last year. And with Trevor Lawrence coming in, come on, it's pinned in, let's be honest.
Right.
And with ink at this point. With Trevor Lawrence coming into this team, I really believe that this is his ceiling next year again. I think he could have a year like this again. I don't hate the idea of drafting him in the first round, let's say late first, beginning of the second type pick for me. I'm super happy to draft him there with maybe one of the biggest generational prospects in Trevor Lawrence coming into the fold. How are you going to give him confidence? Make sure that you can run the ball. That will give him confidence to open up the field. So I really, really like James Robinson next year. As much as I don't like David Montgomery next year, the reasons I like James Robinson are the reasons I don't like David Montgomery next year. The offense is getting better. There's a future quarterback hopefully coming in that's going to set the tone.
Right.
He will still be the guy in the air to catch the passes out of the backfield. I still am happy to draft him in the second round this year.
Are you taking James Robinson over Monty?
Yes, 100%.
Are you going to take James Robinson over someone like an Aaron Jones?
Well, we don't know where Aaron Jones will be, so it's way too hard to say.
If he stays in Green Bay.
I think a realistic guy to talk about right now is, what about like a Joe Mixon? Really unknown of what his year will be like next year. I would much rather have James Robinson than Joe Mixon on my team next year.
Right. I think for me, the reason why I wouldn't compare James Robinson to Joe Mixon is because it's clear that James Robinson is more talented than Joe Mixon. I believe.
Potentially. I mean, I think we didn't really get to see Joe Mixon with Joe Burrow. You know, so
you're right. So
there's going to be a lot of guys to talk about. This first round next year, second round next year is going to be just stacked with people that we believe are talented, and we'll see how it's actually going to pan out. So where are you comfortable taking Robinson then?
I'm thinking second round, like you know. I'm second to third round. I see him going as I'm happy to have him as my RB2. You know, if I have first pick, let's say I have first pick, I take CMC, I'd come on the turn and James Robinson is still there, I'm taking James Robinson.
Yeah,
you know?
I have a feeling he's not going to be there, but yeah.
Yeah, it just really all depends. But I mean, there's so many people in question. You know, a lot of people fall. Are you taking Zeke over James Robinson? Or James Robinson over Zeke? You know, like he's in question now as well. You know.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and I don't know the answer just yet to that one. I think a lot of that it depends on how Dak's recovery goes, and if Dak is on the Cowboys next year. By the way, he still needs to sign a contract. But you look at Zeke's numbers when Dak was the quarterback; they actually aren't terrible numbers. The only thing that really worries me, he's actually pretty good, 20 points a game. That kind of is standard. The only thing that worries me with Zeke is the Tony Pollard situation. Are they going to try and get Tony Pollard more involved? Because he showed that he's very talented this year. I think I would lean James Robinson, personally.
Okay. You know where I see... Sorry, this is so random, but you know where I see Tony Pollard really shining or spreading his wings? I think it's in Atlanta. That sounds so weird, but random. But I think that Tony Pollard can do something in Atlanta, get Todd out of there, Julio Calvin, Justin Fields with a strong back behind him. That's just
I don't hate it. I just don't. He's got a couple more years left on that rookie contract, so
yeah.
I don't think they would. I don't think the Cowboys would trade away a guy who doesn't cost them anything right now, who's talented. Yeah. So you're right though. All right, Jonathan Taylor is the next guy on this list. JT, again, similar to David Montgomery, really started rocky. I mean, as soon as Marlon Mack got injured, people were saying Jonathan Taylor top 10 running back every week, and unfortunately, he didn't do that really until it mattered, until the fantasy playoffs, and a little bit more before the fantasy playoffs.
Right.
But unfortunately, if you had him from, let's say, week 4 to week 12, you got the worst of Jonathan Taylor. And if you had Jonathan Taylor from week 13 all up until the fantasy playoffs finished, you were pretty happy. He definitely had a breakout end of the year.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor was really interesting for all of us. I mean, we saw him come into this league and we were in question. You know, the Colts picked him up. There was Marlon Mack in front of him. What was going to happen? Marlon Mack got hurt. He was out for the rest of the season, which was crazy because it opened up for Jonathan Taylor, and then Jonathan Taylor was not the starting guy in the beginning of the season.
Right.
Okay. Look, Jonathan Taylor, the stats for the year: 232 carries, 1,169 yards on the ground.
That's shocking to me, by the way. I did not think he put up that many yards.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. He has 36 receptions, 19 among running backs, which wasn't the best, but he had a total of 12 touchdowns, 11 on the ground, 1 in the air. And it's just really interesting. JT for me is somebody that is really iffy going into next season. And I've been talking about it. He was iffy for me going into the season. Okay. And I was iffy about him purely because of Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack did incredible the year before. He was a surprise. I was going to say, was he the James Robinson of last year? No, because he wasn't undrafted. He was definitely drafted.
No. Yeah.
But
yeah, definitely.
There
was no James Robinson last year.
Right.
I don't think so.
I guess in fantasy,
not the running back
fantasy related, like we weren't expecting Marlon Mack to have such a good year the year that he had. But anyways, I think that's my concern. My concern is JT going to be the starting guy moving forward? Okay, these are the questions that I'm asking myself before I draft him. Is he going to be the guy moving forward? What's going to happen with Marlon Mack? And if Marlon Mack stays, where am I taking JT? Is JT worth grabbing? Is it going to be a running back by committee? Like, these are all these questions that I'm asking myself, and that's why I'm hesitant about him going into next year.
Okay. Well, he was the 20th running back selected in drafts this last year. He did finish as the 6th running back overall. Obviously returned great value, especially if you traded for him midway through the year. So the question is, next year, does he finish as a top 10 running back? I don't think he finishes as a top 6 running back like he did this year. There's a lot of great running backs missing.
Right.
Does he finish as a top 10 running back? And I feel more comfortable if you were to say top 12. Does he finish as a top 12 running back? I feel more comfortable about that. And I would rather say he's in the top 12 conversation than a guy like David Montgomery. And personally, I don't think Marlon Mack stays. I don't think he stays. I don't think they spend more money on a running back when they have a guy like Jonathan Taylor now. And it showed through that last half of the year that they built a lot of trust with Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
But here's a situation that I want to talk about quickly, just to put a little warning, a little asterisk on Jonathan Taylor's name. 2 very, very different organizations. But let's not forget how we talked about Miles Sanders last year, right? Okay. Had an amazing finish to his rookie season, and a lot of you drafted him with the 10th to 12th pick overall in the draft in the first round. Obviously, spoiler alert, he's on this show and he's not in the breakout category.
Right.
All I'm saying is I'm just being a little bit wary to draft him any earlier than the 3rd round, personally. I don't know that I want to draft him any earlier than the 3rd round, just because I'm not sold that he's 100% going to be able to do this again next year. I think I'm happy with him as my RB2. Let's say you go RB1 in the 1st round, and he's into the 2nd, he's there. I'm happy to have him as my RB2, but I don't know that I want to rely on him as my RB1 next year.
Yeah, and I think that's my question. We've seen a lot of people reach for JT. I remember when Sam took JT in the 3rd round, we were like, whoa. We were skeptical about it, and Sam is somebody in our league that we do our the Fellowship of the Fantasy Ring with, and he took JT in the 3rd round, which that's where his average draft position was. But I remember our reaction to that, and that was a bit early. It felt too early.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing him going. For me, I'm not excited to take him until early 5, 6. I don't think he'll fall there. I don't think he'll fall there.
Come on, bro. There's no way he falls there.
No. I agree. I don't think he falls there.
Are you a hater? Are you a hater of Jonathan Taylor?
No, I'm not. I'm not a hater. I'm just scared. I don't want to put my trust. I don't want to put my trust in JT.
Someone please make a shirt from that in quotations. I'm not a hater. I'm just scared. That's hilarious.
It's true though. Like I think I'll be more comfortable taking J.K. Dobbins over JT.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. We're going to have a lot to talk about in the offseason. Jonathan Taylor's a big name that's going to be thrown around. And does he have the opportunity to finish as a running back 5 next year? I think the possibility is there. But it's more likely he finishes as a top 12 running back than a top 5, in my opinion. All right. The next guy is very near and dear to my heart. I love him. His name is Antonio Gibson. Antonio. And wow. To say that he broke out in the second half of the year would be a true statement. Unfortunately, that injury really set him back. But that game on Thanksgiving, when he put up 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys, that's when you saw his upside. That's when you were like, oh, okay, he's got this upside. He was drafted as the 38th overall running back, which was late in the 8th round, and he finished as the RB 13. So technically, if you drafted him, in the 2nd round or so, you would have got good value.
You're right.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe so. Look, I like Antonio Gibson. I think he was hindered a lot this year. 1 by J.D. McKissick and 2 by his injury. Okay. Yeah. He had 795 yards rushing. He had 170 carries. He caught the ball 36 times. He was 20th in receptions, which isn't the best. But he totaled for 11 touchdowns, okay? All on the ground. He didn't catch 1 in the air. It's clear that, at least this year, that J.D. McKissick was their satellite back. They used him, for screens. They used him for, dump offs and stuff like that. And Antonio Gibson wasn't that guy. And there was a lot of talks in the early in the season. And you were saying Antonio Gibson, he is like a running back wide receiver. They need to be giving him the ball. They need to be utilizing him more. My question to you is that going to happen next year? Did Ron Rivera see what he can do this year? It was like, well, next year it's clear that we're going to give him everything. Or does he like having JD behind Antonio? Does he like having those 2 backs and really utilizing them? Because he had CMC that did everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the reality is if you look at CMC's first season, did he do everything his first season? No, he didn't. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Antonio Gibson is CMC because I'm not going to talk any blasphemy on the show.
Right.
But I do think that it's very common for a very young, talented running back. We've seen it every year to not get the full workload until towards the end of his first, beginning of his second year. And I think when you look at weeks 7 to 12, and you see the receptions, he's getting anywhere from 5 to 3 to 4 receptions a game. And I really think that he could average 3 to 5 receptions a game next year. And I'm really excited to see him. I do think that J.D. McKissic will still have a pretty significant role because he still has another year on that contract. But I'm still really excited to see Antonio Gibson next year. And honestly, if Taylor Heineke is a starter, I'm not upset about that. I think, I would like to see what he could do with, hey, give him a full offseason. Maybe he could be that guy. I mean, Scary Terry even said it, give me number 4. I'm good with number 4. So I would be really excited to see what this offense would look like with a quarterback who's competent. Because you have to keep in mind, the quarterback play for Antonio Gibson this whole year has been up and down consistently.
Right.
Can I remind you that Dwayne Haskins started like almost 6 to 7 games this year, and Antonio Gibson finished as a running back 13 somehow? The talent's there. I think they're going to utilize it more next year.
Yeah, I think the way he finished this year, it's only up from here. If he does bad next year, and he finishes outside the top 15, I think there's a little bit of concern going into, or like at the end of next season, if he finished, like I said, if he finished outside the top 15. But if he like he finished in an area where he can easily improve. He can start every game. He will definitely, hopefully, rush for more than 1,000 yards next year. I think he will. I think he'll stay consistent with the touchdowns. I would like to see more attempts. 170 attempts.
Yeah.
I mean,
got to keep in mind he did miss a couple games. However, he did have 1,000 total yards on the ground and the air. So if you combine those, he had 1,000 total yards. I'm excited to see him next year. I think he does have top 10 running back upside again. I'm happy to draft him in the second round as let's see if this is going to continue.
Are you taking Jonathan Taylor over Antonio Gibson? Non-biased?
I personally, unbiasedly, I think that there's more safety in Jonathan Taylor. But I think there's more upside in Antonio Gibson. So it's the risk-reward situation.
Okay. Out of these guys, what's your order? Out of all these, so Monty, James.
Out of the four we just gave.
What's your order?
James is obviously my first. James Robinson is my first.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really blurred lines between 2 and 3 with Jonathan Taylor and Antonio Gibson, but I will put Jonathan Taylor 2, Antonio Gibson 3, and then I think Montgomery is pretty clear 4th for me personally.
Okay. I will flip Antonio's my number 2 and Jonathan Taylor 3 for me, and then it's the same.
Because it's funny because Jonathan Taylor and Antonio Gibson aren't in 2 completely different worlds. They both have a third down back who takes a lot of receptions.
Exactly.
Nyheim Hines and J.D. McKissic. So, and also I would like to believe that if we have the thing is J.D. McKissic was so valuable this year because we just really didn't have any quarterback who knew how to throw the football down the field. Mm-hmm. We had a game manager. We had a guy who was a first-round bust. And then we had Taylor Heineke who stepped in. When Taylor Heineke played, J.D. McKissic did not get as many receptions as when other quarterbacks played. So if we just have a quarterback who can throw the ball down the field, you might see less value out of a J.D. McKissic. So anyway, man, it's going to be fun to see what happens next year. But we have come to the busts segment of the show. These are our running back busts of the year.
We need as many men as you can spare, so call the dogs off. Send the National Guard, please. They need emergency help. They're coming. Help is on the way.
Help is on the way. A lot of these guys you drafted high all these guys you would have drafted either in the first, second, or third round. Okay. And most of them did not, none of them really returned the value that you drafted them at. I think probably without a doubt, pre-draft, there was not more hype for another player other than Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Absolutely.
The hype was real. And most people drafted him in the first round.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you did not get that value back. Proper value would have been in the middle of the fourth for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 7th running back off the board, finished as a running back 22, Badaki.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Obviously, from the start of the season, was it Darnell Williams opted out of the season?
Oh, Damian Williams.
He opted out in the beginning of the season, which has opened all the doors and opportunity for Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. And I was a bit against Clyde in the beginning, wasn't I?
I don't remember.
I feel like I was, because I don't think I was confident taking it. I remember talking about it with you and just saying, like, if I got 4, 5, 6, I'm not taking Clyde. Can't take Clyde.
Yeah.
It's too early. I don't know what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
And I think where he finished this year is kind of where he should have been drafted. You know, if he finishes running back 22, where does that kind of even out? Like you said, 4th, 5th, right?
Yeah.
So, look, once
this
again,
is, by the way, we always talk about a 12-man league perspective.
Correct.
When we talk about rounds.
Correct.
But
so, with Clyde, it's a bit interesting because if Damian Williams comes back next year, what's Clyde's role? How does that look like? Is Le'Veon Bell still there? Obviously, Le'Veon Bell, nothing really happened. It was only 1 year. We doubt he'll stay there. But there's too many mouths to feed in that backfield.
Here's a conclusion I have come to, okay, this year, is as good as this offense is, I'm not sure there's a top 10 upside running back with Patrick Mahomes behind center. The reason being is the Chiefs trust Patty more than anyone else. And if I am the Chiefs owner or if I'm Andy Reid, why am I not putting the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands as many times as I possibly can? You know what I mean? Right. Why am I not trusting maybe the greatest quarterback we have ever seen? So I think, honestly, a lot of it comes down to we have so many weapons that maybe there's not going to be a running back 1 on this team ever.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know either. I think that, I 100% agree with you. I 100% see in your perspective. But Andy Reid has to think about, Patrick Mahomes. He's smart. We get the ball in his hands. He makes, great decisions. His arm is incredible. Why not open up the playbook and get somebody that can gain us 5-6 yards every time behind Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
And obviously sure. Clyde was that guy. He was incredible in college. He did everything he needed to be this guy, apparently. I think Andy Reid needs to find the perfect running back for
I still think
Patty.
Clyde can be this person, though. I still think he can be that perfect running back in this system. I'm just not sure the system requires a running back to do more that makes him fantasy relevant. And the last thing I will say is I think Clyde could be a guy that slips in drafts that could return more value than where you draft him. I think he could be that kind of person, almost like a David Montgomery of last year. Could slip a little far in a draft. People aren't so hyped. What about Damian Williams? And he could return some sort of value like that. Our next bust of the year is Ezekiel Elliott. And guys, some of these picks are purely based off of where you drafted them and what return you got.
Right.
Okay. Ezekiel Elliott was the 3rd player off the board for the whole draft. He was pick number 3 in the first round. He finished as the running back 9. Okay. And obviously did not return the value. Let's talk about it, though, because when Dak was healthy, Zeke was a really great asset. He did score around 20 points per game.
Yeah, he did.
When Dak fell off, when he had the injury, unfortunately, Zeke could not carry this offense. But what happens next year? What's the value of an Ezekiel Elliott next year in drafts?
Yeah, it's a bit interesting. I think that you have to stay 3, 4, 5 with Zeke. I think that all depends on if Dak Prescott is going to get signed. It all depends on what's really going to be happening in that organization. Look, I was a Zeke owner. Zeke was my first round pick this year. And I drafted him as the foundation, as the pillar of my team. Okay?
Foundation.
And he wasn't that guy.
No.
Luckily, I had, bro, can I tell you my first 3 picks really fast? Zeke, Patty, Kelsey. Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing, okay? And obviously, if Zeke really put up the numbers he did last year, it would have been unstoppable. But look, I think that Zeke he's on the decline. There's a lot of talks that he's not the same. He's injured. A lot of things is happening right now. I just don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the big question here is Tony Pollard. What does his role look like next year? Would it eat into Zeke's, carries? Because I think Zeke did lose a little explosiveness. And I think, honestly, if you're taking him in the top 5, then you're making a massive mistake. I don't think you take Zeke any earlier than the very end of the first, personally. So that'll be a lot to talk about in the offseason.
That would be a lot. That means you're taking a lot of, there's a lot of people. Alvin, Dalvin, Henry, not Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb. Mm-hmm. You're taking, obviously, I agree with what I just said. I'll take all those guys over Zeke.
Yep.
Saquon. James Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
That's
CMC.
7. Those are 7 people. So now then you'll take Zeke.
Well, the line is very blurred right now for me, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know exactly where I'm taking him, but it's not as high as most people would maybe potentially see him as.
Say no more.
All right, the next guy on our list is probably not going to be a starting running back next year. Let's be pretty honest. Unfortunately, injuries have derailed his career. He was once the best player in fantasy.
Wow.
And due to some weak knees, arms are sweaty, mom's spaghetti, Todd Gurley is our next bust of the year. Drafted as a 15th running back overall, middle of the 3rd round is where you got him, and he finished as a running back 29. And other than falling into the end zone a lot this year, he was not good. He was not efficient. He was not consistent. It did not look fun to watch him play. I'm not sure he's a starting running back in this league anymore.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I don't think he is somebody that we should be considering. He is if he starts next year, round 8, 7, 8 as a flex, if you really, really wanted to. Even then, there's still a lot of people that are better in that flex position. 7, 8 is probably still a bit too early for Todd Gurley right now. But like you said, I don't see him playing next year. I don't see him being an asset to any team. I think he can be a great mentor for somebody. I think he can sit behind, kind of like what they're doing with AP. They bought AP as a, let him sit in the room with these young guys and say, This is what needs to happen. He's going to be that guy. It sucks because he's still young, bro. He's 26 years old, but
yeah, well, the knees really gave out, and unfortunately, that happens when you are the most, abused position in the NFL, the running back position.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right, you're not drafting Todd Gurley next year. Let's be honest. Don't do it. Let's talk about Miles Sanders, though. He is the last guy we're going to talk about on the podcast today. Miles Sanders, drafted as the 11th overall player late in the 1st round, finished as a running back 23. Now, obviously, some injuries really played part in that, Badaki, but this was supposed to be his breakout year. This was supposed to be whatever we saw last year towards the end of the year. That's every game for Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
And from the inconsistency at quarterback to Philadelphia completely imploding on itself, Miles Sanders did not have a great year when it comes to fantasy football.
No, I think this whole Eagles organization didn't have a great year, period. You know, we can, like you said, Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders, these three pillars on this team that we thought are going to be fantasy relevant weren't. Obviously, like you said, Miles Sanders was injured. He had an injury. He never picked it up in time. I don't think they had the opportunity.
Yeah.
They were down a lot in games. They abandoned the run a lot. There was a lot of great opportunities for him to go against some really bad run defenses. They didn't utilize him when they played Green Bay. What, 4 points? You kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
maybe
it's true.
It probably has to deal with a lot of the play calling. We don't know, but Miles Sanders is iffy next year. There's a lot of questions of where do you see him being drafted next year?
I see him being drafted where David Montgomery was drafted this year, around that area, around the third, fourth, fifth round area, and I think there could be a good return in value there if the right coach comes in. There's only 4 games you were happy. There's only really 3 games you're happy starting Miles Sanders this year.
Right.
That was week 2 versus LA, week 5 versus Pittsburgh, and week 14, versus New Orleans. Other than that, you weren't happy starting him. And I remember Jordan Westfield from our league, he offered me a trade offer for Nick Chubb right when Nick Chubb was coming back from that injury for Miles Sanders. And I just said to him, like, honestly, there's just no way that you could guarantee me that Miles Sanders will be better than Nick Chubb rest of the season.
Right.
Because I think most people expected that. Most people expected he's coming back from the injury. Let's get him more involved. And that's how we have to look at him next year versus every running back. You can't guarantee me that he's going to be better than running back B. Enter a running back's name. You can't promise me that. And it could end up returning good value, similar to what happened to David Montgomery this year.
Right. Look, Miles Sanders is really interesting. There's a lot of people. I think I'll be taking everyone that we've talked about over Miles Sanders besides Todd Gurley, on bust or breakouts. Maybe not Clyde. So
I was gonna say you're gonna take Clyde over Miles next year.
Maybe not Clyde. I think I'll be on the fence with Clyde. But Miles, there's a lot of people I'll be taking over Miles Sanders. I would rather have JT over Miles Sanders, and I'm hesitant on JT already. There's a lot of people we can talk about that I would take over Miles Sanders right now. I'm considering right now Myles Gaskin. Thinking about Myles Gaskin, I could be taking him over Miles Sanders.
I think that's a little bit of a reach, but I mean, it's just hard to say what's going to happen in the offseason.
Exactly. So
I think Antonio Gibson, I'm definitely taking over Miles Sanders. I am taking Joe Mixon over Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler over Miles Sanders, obviously James Robinson over Miles Sanders, Cam Akers probably over Miles Sanders.
What about Raheem?
Raheem Mostert, no, just because that backfield is just hard.
That's my thought process. I don't know if Miles Sanders. I'm not saying he's not the guy. I'm not saying he's not talented. It's that organization. I think it also depends who's going to be the new head coach there. Who's going to be the quarterback there. Yeah. A lot of factors kind of play into it.
Yeah, you're right. All right, guys. Those are our running back, remix. The running back bust and breakouts of the year. We will be bringing you the wide receiver group next week. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver bust and breakouts of the year. What it means for this year coming up, how you will draft them, and all the goodies that will come. Do not miss our next episode where we talk about the championship games from the playoffs, what we think is going to happen, any sort of predictions that we think are going to happen. I'm excited for this next one because we're going to be so close to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's crazy. One more game, essentially. 2 more weeks, which is essentially one more game after this weekend. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited, and I'm excited about the wide receivers. I know that Probably a little spoiler. JJ could be on there. Which JJ? I don't know. Julio Jones? Could be both. Julio or Justin Jefferson. A lot of JJs out there.
I don't know. There's a lot of JJs on the board. Do not miss our next episode. We're going to be talking conference championships and the 2021 NFL draft order. All right, guys. Thanks for joining in. We will see you on the next show. See you there.
See you there.
Hey, yeah, you, the one listening to this podcast, you made a good decision today. Keep making those good decisions. You know what? Go ahead and do a little dance right now, like no one's watching. 'Cause you deserve it.